That is my pseudo living room ca- ca- called my green screen.
Very nice. I love it.
I think it's just so ambient, right? And
Yeah, it looks really
Lord knows I don't have that many books.
love it. So, Enrique, thank you so much for joining me this evening. And I'm assuming you're morning. I'm not sure, actually. You're in the US. So, to be quite honest, I don't think you really need an introduction. I mean, you served as an executive businessman, a veteran and advocate, board member, not for profit administrator, a speaker, coach, mentor, volunteer over the last 30 years. So, what a mouthful, and it's an absolute pleasure to be chatting with you. So thank you so much for your time. I guess I would love to hear and or let you explain a little bit about your background before we get into the nitty gritties.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Trisha, for inviting me and having me to speak. I love these sessions. A little bit about me. I'm a 26-year Navy veteran, and it's funny how you will start with that, but that was the bulk of my life. So I did that for 26 years. Retired in 2015 and decided to take all the gifts, all the talents, and all the education that the Navy gave me in leadership and apply them to corporate America. Um, I have had several positions, as you mentioned, a mouthful. Imagine living it. It's fun. It was fun. But with executives, with leaders, with managers, mentoring people into positions of greater authority and responsibility, and enjoyed every bit of it. And I still do. So I am the CEO of Triad Leadership Solutions. And that's what I focus on. I focus on first term leaders going into leadership for the first time, usually college graduates that have just got that fresh degree and are trying to take on the world, and and struggling leaders, people in positions that for whatever reason they landed there but are not prepared, and so they struggle. And so I mentor them, I coach them through a method that I use called ATM. But we bring them to their full potential, and so I love every minute of it. I mentor across the globe, and just so happy, so fortunate to be in this position.
Fantastic. I think you've done a great job, especially across your LinkedIn. You've really got high engagements, and it's a topic that a lot of leaders and even emerging leaders are really, encouraged to be digesting. And I think the impact managers have on their teams and their direct reports is so important, and it really shapes them for the coming years, or even roles and positions that they're going to be undertaking. I would love to hear your insights. Do you think, or has there been a change as a result of COVID in the leadership positions, or even titles among companies and tasks that employees are having to do?
Yeah, no, I tell you, once COVID started perpetuating itself and and grabbing the globe, in a huge storm, the first thing I thought of was leadership. Not just because I do it for a living or teach it, but because I knew that this was a critical time in life that we've never seen since, the last time this thing came around. Um, where leaders were going to be tested. If there's any time like now, this is the greatest leadership test that anyone could ever take, because you're having to lead. Just imagine having struggles leading when you're in the group. Now you have to do it remotely. Now you have to do it, everything is virtual. Now you have to do it in other ways that we were never trained to do, because it was a common fact that we were going to be there for the people, and they were going to be able to come to us, and hopefully a true leader would be going to them, but they were going to be able to come to us, however you would have it, and you could solve some of their issues, some of their problems, some of their pain points, and things like that. Well, how are you going to do that now? Their pain points include their home life. Before it was, hey, I leave home and I left that there. I go to work, I perform, I do my job, I leave work, I leave that there. So now everything is a mix. Leaders were not prepared to face these issues. And so, and then some leaders, although prepared with resources, were not prepared mentally and emotionally to provide a support that most of them will say, I didn't sign up for this. Right? Uh, so, so leadership has undoubtedly changed. Some of the redundancies, which was another issue that I saw early on, companies will realize that the leaders they had in place were truly not doing everything they were saying they did. And so now they can get rid of some because there was another leader that raised up and in the midst of so much chaos, the true leaders would rise. And I knew that. I knew that's what's going to happen. And so some leaders were going to be challenged with their positions because a lot of things were redundant. And so, in trying to streamline, in trying to save money, in trying to save their personnel, companies would have to choose to say, you know what, we only need one of those. And this person is doing it good. I'm sorry, we have a decision to make to cut some people to save some money because times are hard. I knew that that decision was going to come.
Mm. Do you think, or what qualities do you think would facilitate a company keeping someone versus making someone let go despite the budget? So if salary didn't matter, what qualities do you think? Because often top line management are the first to go in these in tough times, but I guess
Right.
to propel the organization forward, you still need to have talent.
Yeah, no, the talent base is necessary. Does it need to be robust? Is the question, right? And I think a lot of companies have come up to that question and are trying to answer it as best they can. But to be honest, to make a true and great decision in this regard, the leaders that are making these decisions have to be true leaders. Because if you're just basing it off money, you may let go of the best asset you have. And so what does upper management, executive level management need to do? They need to make sure that they're the best leader that they can be in order to be able to gauge and identify another best leader. And so those are the challenges that are even without COVID, those were the challenges before. Executive level management, leadership were not doing what leaders were doing, and so there was a gap. And then the leaders were not doing what the managers were doing, and there was a gap. Those gaps are way bigger now, right? And so to fill them, everybody has to go back to basics. Everyone, from the top CEO to the bottom manager, has to go, and I dare even say the worker. The worker has to go back to basics so they can identify who's making the biggest impact.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I want to add maybe honing effectiveness. So it doesn't matter what level you're sitting at within the organization. If you're not effective at what you're doing, then nothing can be, the trajectory cannot grow, or your effectiveness, top and bottom line figures, they cannot be enhanced. And I think even inspiring people to increase productivity, to make sure that they know what the bigger picture is, and to maybe even take on extended tasks in terms of guiding or developing others within the organization. And maybe more importantly, is engaging external stakeholders to then be able to ensure that the business can maybe, you know, remain sustainable from the
Yeah.
external support.
Yeah, that type of communication is what communication has always been an issue, but now more than ever. And you must communicate, especially as a business. You have to communicate with your stakeholders, those that are supporting you, those that are singing your praises, if you will, because if they continue to do that, support you, sing your praises, then even though you have to take some cuts here and there internally, you won't suffer a lot of cuts out. But communication is always a key.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, and maybe you could put your in thoughts. I think communication is discussed so frequently within organizations. It's the key and a core pillar. But I think just as equally important is the ability to, for someone on the reciprocal end, to be able to hear and digest. because you can be a fantastic communicator, you can articulate your message, but if the person on the receiving end is not open or even willing to be listening and digest and more so be analytical, I think then communication means bugger all.
Right. No, and you're right. And I dare say this, right? Are you truly communicating if the person getting your input is not receiving it? I don't think you are. And
Mm,
so all you are is a great transmitter.
yeah.
That's it. You're not a great communicator because you're right. Communication is the ability to put something, package it in a way where you can deliver it, but more importantly, that the person receiving it can receive it, digest it, and make something of it.
Yeah.
That is the fullness of communication. So
And how or what have you seen within companies or clients that you work with, your experience that maybe now more than ever it's more difficult because we're all digital behind the screen, we're not face to face, but we're discussing and in conversations with people from an international sector. So I think it's more difficult than ever.
it is, and it was already difficult, right? It was already difficult. So that's why when I was talking earlier about going back to the basics, this is a very I hear a lot of people talking about the Great Reset. Um, you know, whether it's a political agenda or not, it doesn't matter. It is an opportunity to reset. Whatever you need to reset, this is the best opportunity you've ever had. So if you had trouble communicating, reset that because like you said, it doesn't matter if you speak. If the person listening cannot package it and do something with it, communication is broken.
Mm,
Now what we see is that people want to continue the old way of communicating and it's not going to work.
mm,
You have to be intrusive now, you
mm.
know uh I so yeah, you the communication has to go up.
So now like the communication, it's saturated. I mean, you've got someone from HR sending you new corporate initiatives, you've got your
Yeah,
direct line manager, you have got social media company posts. Communication channels are so frequent and saturated that it then becomes a switch off mode, and then maybe the bottom end, or not bottom end, but I get lower end tiers within an organization don't have the ability to decipher and filter important versus non-important, and then it maybe distracts them from tasks at hand. I'm not sure if
yeah,
you agree. Is that
yeah. No, there is a thing of saturated bandwidth, right? Yeah, right. And so it's funny because the more we talk, the more adamant I am to not use communication as much, the word, right? Because just because you have saturated bandwidth does not mean you're communicating. It just means that you're flooded with content. You're flooded with. So what's the responsibility of leadership? To limit the bandwidth upload with content that really matters. And if I'm working for you and I know that if I got an email from you, it really means something, right? If I mean, I have to listen because I know they would not just send me something like this for no reason. Then I'm more apt to receive that message and say, hey, hold on, left and right, hold on. I got this thing in front of me. Let me read this, let me digest it, let me give it some time. Because the problem is that there is a lot of bandwidth, a lot of content, a lot of things being thrown at us. And you can fall into that trap
mm,
of saying, you know what, from 8 to 10, I'm not listening to nothing. I'm not gonna look at nothing. I just can't. So that's something that the companies have to develop. That's a cultural thing that change that they must do to ensure their people that when they communicate, it means something.
I think you're absolutely right. And now more than ever again, that we've got Microsoft Teams, we've got Zoom, Google Hangout, emails, plus the different threads that you've got off each of those platforms. Where has the rather than sending an email for something quick and small to align, gone are the days have you even picked up the phone, which used to be the norm. Like, Yeah, and I guess this is what you're referring to by going back to basics. Rather than
Right.
filling your emails up, receiving, 400 or 500 emails a day, limit that for a quick phone call. I think maybe that's something that organizations can put in place, or I don't know, maybe try. But I would like to hear your take, and maybe something this I've had maybe firsthand experience with, in terms of being in a junior position, or not junior, I shouldn't say, but someone with less responsibilities, and
Hmm.
because of redundancies, and you now automatically have to take on a leadership position.
Mm,
There's not a lot of coaching. It seems to be everything is self-taught, listening to
right.
podcasts, surrounding yourself with other leaders to learn what they do. How do you foresee, or what do you think the best approach organizations could do to mentor uh, those people who have automatically been thrown into a leadership role?
Well, number one is recognize what you're doing to that person. If you're going to put somebody in that position, be a leader to the point where you can say, you know what, I'm going to put this person in this position. What can I provide them to help them be effective and efficient? Because look, that happened before. Most of my job and most of my work comes from this very situation. People are thrusted into positions they were not ready for because either a vacancy came up, I don't have money to hire somebody else. I don't like this person, so I'm going to throw you in there. All these different reasons why people get thrusted in positions that they're not ready for. Well, it happened before. The thing is that what was before, it doesn't work now. This is, and I mentioned a reset your mind, your thinking. I am asking this of this person. What can I do to help them out? Because I know they're not ready for it. I know they're not. I may think you're capable of doing it, but until you're in there and you're driving that car, I really don't know. So what can I do? Can I put barriers where at least if they go side to side, they can still stay in the lane? Can I be that person guiding them on the other side? Uh, it's That's not going to change. I don't think it's ever going to change until senior leadership identifies a process of where they put people in the right seat for the right reasons, and because they actually belong there. It's always going to be an issue. But
Mm,
what people can do, what leadership can do, is think through the process and what can you do to help that person be effective. Because at the end of the day, some of those people that you're putting in there can make or break you.
mm.
A bad communication, a bad post on LinkedIn or wherever social media that represents your company now. So you got to think these things through.
Mm,
Yeah, you have a need, you have a hole, you have a person, you want to put them in there,
mm.
help them out.
I think, like, initiating small group classes or upskilling sessions is something quite effective. But and coming back to the word effective, I want to maybe
Mhm.
reiterate or touch on, how do you measure that? Everyone always says improve efficiency. Was it effective? But what's a way to measure this word?
Well, that all goes back to leadership's shoulders as well, right? You have to come up with a way where, let's say, okay, I have Trisha. She's at home. She's working for me. She's got clerical duties. What do I see? What do I envision a work day that is effective in my eyes? Okay, maybe she, you know, sometimes they even throw how many emails you view. That is such a terrible thing to throw in there. Those are mundane things that people just what does an effective day look like for Trisha from my perspective? And then set that as the bar. If she meets it, she did well. If she overachieved, but in this virtual environment, there's just no way to say, and this is another fallacy for leadership. They used to go by, and if you look busy, you was productive. No, no, I could have been playing Tetris for all you know. But right, but you have to set that bar. But you have to think about it. It just cannot be something that's just a, okay, if you look at 300 emails, if you answer 20 phone calls, how do I know that you did that?
Mm,
Make it something that I can gauge, but that's productive for the person. Make their life right now more than ever. People need to know that their lives mean something,
mm,
that their work means something, that their work is actually adding to the corporate mission and their vision and their strategies. You know, when was the last time a person that was at a clerical position was briefed about the company strategy?
yeah.
Hardly ever. You
Yeah.
know, bring them in, let them see the big picture, let them see where they actually impact,
Mm,
and that'll make a difference.
mm. Yeah, I think you're right. I think setting small goals that are smart, we all know
Yeah.
what smart goals are. They're used interchangeably, and your performance appraisals, etc. But I think if they're not frequently revisited, then you'll never know,
Yeah.
the impact that you're having, which I think is why it's so important to be doing maybe quarterly or mid reviews before the final one, and having feedback from peer to peer. I think that's something really important to be incorporating on a frequent basis, and being having the ability to be transparent, open, and giving clear communication and that is constructive feedback. I think people find it difficult to do that, and me included. Sometimes I'm a little bit blunt in the way that I speak, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's hard. We're not taught interpersonal skills, and especially in different regions, being culturally aware and learning what's acceptable in
Yeah.
one community and not another. So
Yeah, no, that's so critical. You bring up another thing is right. So who are you dealing with? What are you dealing with? Who are you communicating to?
mm,
Um, you know, Leaders have to get to a position where everything they do, they have to think about. Before you just went to work, you as long as nobody got hurt, no, the company didn't lose money. People got their questions answered. You did your job. No, you have to be. I mentioned this earlier. A lot more intrusive nowadays, not into people's lives. Don't get that wrong. Into what they're doing for you. You
mm,
know,
mm,
do
mm,
you have everything you need? What can I provide for you to make it better? Do you have all your equipment, or do you have enough time? Let's talk about the schedule I just gave you, right? Let's talk about it so you understand from my perspective what I need from you, because this is what I see as a great day. But yeah,
I think
you
you're
got
right
to be intrusive.
that executive, senior management, no matter what level, you need to be asking the workforce, how can I help you? What do you need? But being genuine. I mean, it's
Yep.
thrown about quite frequently. Let me know if you need anything. How can I support you? But maybe action isn't taken, or it's not as meaningful as what it's being thrown about. So, yeah, I think you've raised some really good points. So, I don't know. I want to maybe say thank you for your time, and ask you maybe something in closing. What would be some advice that you could give maybe up and coming or emerging leaders, or those aspiring to be in an executive or senior management position, but not more so not the title, just a leader within the organization?
Yeah. We mentioned reset, right? Everybody's facing that. You're at a perfect position that if you get the basics down, you may shine brighter than the brightest star in your company, because the basics will get you a long way. Now you'll have to develop, and for that, you have company trainings, you have people like me that can get you there. But if you start at the basics and you get good at the basics, everything else is a pillar, everything else is a stepping stone, everything else is a building block. You will get where you think you need to go. But if you avoid the basics, there's a lot of pitfalls. So focus on the basics.
Enrique, thank you so much. I'm really appreciative of your time. Please, how can the audience, or yeah, my audience, I guess, find you?
Yeah, well, you mentioned earlier, I'm on LinkedIn. I live on LinkedIn. That's my platform. There are other ways: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Triad Leadership Solutions is what you'll go to see there. I think on Twitter is TLS_FL, which is Florida. But Enrique Acosta Gonzalez on LinkedIn, that's the best way.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I can see you're on a fitness journey, so keep going. You're looking trim, taut, and terrific. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.